Hi, this is the Catholic Lady again. We are now on part 3 of chapter 15 of the Great Line of God. We will continue. Aristo stared at him with the same incredulity that Reb Isaac had shown. Master, there is no safety in this world, no security, and men who seek such are less than men. They are women in their souls, or eunuchs. Man is a very dangerous animal, and always will be. I know this about Saul. He is of a nature to court danger, and to despise safety, for he is a man, and not a girl in a man's body. Let him be, I implore you. We are all called to different destinies. Let Paul seek and find his own. Hillel was silent. Aristo regarded him with sharp pity. Some perpetual sorrow now lay upon his master, some grief that haunted his days, and Hillel turned away without speaking again. But that night he accosted Saul. I would have you beget a son to say Kaddish for you, my son, he said. It is a terrible grief to a Jew that he has no son to do that for him. Saul had listened without speaking to his father, but his somber face had expressed nothing, not even outrage. Then, as he heard Hillel's final words, that somberness softened. It is said, Father, that some men are called to the field and the forest, and some to the hearth and marriage, and some to labor in the vineyards, and some to tend the flocks, each man to his season and his life. And some there are who are called to the service of God only. Hillel, in his grief and despair, flew into anger. How do you know that? Has God told you that in the darkness of the night? Has he whispered that in your ear? Are you not presumptuous, even perhaps blasphemous? Saul half turned away, and in a low voice answered, I only know that it is so. Where he will lead me, I do not know, but where he leads me, there shall I go. I can only speak with the surety of my inner knowledge. I have asked myself 1,000 questions, doubting the answer is always the same, stronger and more insistent. How did the prophets know before they heard the voice of God? How did Moses know until he saw the burning bush? I await the call. I can only wait, certain that I will hear it. I have lost my son, my only son, said Hillel, and struggled with his tears. What crime have I done to merit this? Have I been an unnatural father, stern and cruel and unjust? Have I turned from my children with harsh words and rejecting gestures? Have I tried to walk humbly with my God? And I have lost my son. Father, said Saul. There were tears in his own eyes, but Hillel silenced him with a frantic gesture. Rabbi Isaac is an old man and wise, and a teacher, and your teacher, and he has agreed to this marriage with one as fair as Bathsheba herself, and of the tenderest soul. Is he not wiser than you, older than you, with knowledge far beyond yours? Yet you despise his wisdom, you repudiate his dearest treasure? Must I tell him, my son claims superior knowledge to yours, Reb Isaac, and a deeper wisdom, therefore he declines Elisheba? Father, said Saul, for the first time, Hillel heard a moving sorrow in his son's voice, and a grief for himself. I will tell Reb Isaac myself. Do so, and then let him despise me as a feeble father whose son will not obey him, and looks lightly upon him as a fool. Let him hold me in contempt that I have such a son, who looks for visions and not for life. Let him suspect the most unspeakable. It is all I deserve. Let him spurn me with his foot as an ingrate and low creature, for I persuaded him to agree to this marriage, and now he will know my full degradation as a man and a father. He hurried away to the house, and Saul, at first, taking a step after him, and then halting, looking about the bright autumn of the gardens, and shivered. He put his hand to his forehead. It felt numb and chill. He was shaken to the heart and full of sorrow for his father. He wanted to weep, but could not. He had no words to tell his father of the love he bore him, and his helplessness before the fact that he must hurt him. He only knew that in some moment he could not remember, long ago, he had heard a call, and knew that he dared not refuse it, and that if he refused it, his life would mean nothing. But in answering it, he would have the only joy he would ever know. O sublime and terrible joy! O fire that consumed and thereby increased! O bliss that tortured and replenished and healed! O death to life that was the only life! O love of man's desiring and man's hope and man's peace and ecstasy! The grandeur and glory of the landscape he sometimes glimpsed seemed to him too ineffable and rapturous to be borne for more than an instant of time. The young man raised his eyes to the sky, and it seemed to him that he saw a great and powerful flash, more brilliant than the sun, more terrifying than lightning. If it consume me, he thought with a rush at his heart like wings. He thought with a rush at his heart like wings, and reduce me to ashes, so even my ashes shall praise him and adore him. He picked up his cloak and made his way to the house of Reb Isaac. Father and son did not speak for 2 days. Dogs are barking. Father and son did not speak for 2 days, and then Reb Isaac visited Hillel ben Baruch, and they retired to Hillel's chamber. The old rabbi put his hands on his friend's shoulders and looked deeply into his eyes, and his own were no longer irascible and glinting, but soft and compassionate as a woman's. Saul has come to me. Do not grieve, my dear friend. Saul has spoken to me. I listened not to his words, but to that which was behind them. Hillel groaned and turned away. I only know that God himself has said that it is not good for man to live alone, without a helpmate. For Adam he created Eve. Moses had a wife. The prophets had wives. How dare then my son say that he will not marry, that he will only devote his life to God? Has he not violated the very words of God in his decision? A man who serves God is also human, and God has only provided for his needs, but has commanded them as a duty. There are some, Reb Isaac reminded him, who can only serve God and cannot be distracted even by a loving wife and children. There are not many, but they are known to us, and we revere not denounce them. Are they weaker than us, or are they stronger? That we do not know. We rabbis marry. We do not serve God the less because we have wives and children. Often our wives hearten us, for it is a lonely road that a man travels without a woman, and a bleak and bitter and silent one. A good woman often brings us closer to God. But there are some whose souls are so filled with God that there is no place for a human love. They are rare, but they are also known. We do not reproach them. And you believe Saul was such, said the distracted and disbelieving father, who now looked at Reb Isaac as if at an enemy. I believe so. Yes, I believe so. Send him to Rabban Gamaliel, the wisest of the wise. The time has come. Rejoice, Hillel ben Baruch, For it is possible that you have been greatly blessed in having this son." But Hillel could not be comforted. However, he resumed conversation with his son, and he was so kind that he did not wish Saul to detect any longer his profound disappointment and despair. If Saul saw them, and he did, he knew he was helpless. On the day of his departure for Israel, he wrote to Reb Isaac, wandering in the night, and I do not to Reb Isaac, "I must go, but I fear for when I go. I have heard my father's wandering in the night, and I do not believe that it is only I who has caused him such misery. There is a grief of which he never speaks, but which has been with him a long time. Comfort him, dear teacher, for I have no comfort to give him. I go, but I know not where. I only know I must go." And that's the end of chapter 15. And we'll return tomorrow with chapter 16. Hopefully we'll have fewer problems.